review writing process easier and to improve your final review, please consider the following points. Okay. Writing early and multiple drafts, and structure. Writing about qualitative data, writing about quantitative data, and critical analysis. Okay, I'm going through it one by one. Okay. First, writing early and multiple drafts. Although most systematic review handbooks leave recommendations on writing to the end or omit them altogether, you can begin drafting your review early in the process. Pre-writing and recognizing that even a very messy draft can result in an excellent systematic review can clarify your thinking. Right. Structure. Unlike the traditional literature review, which allow you to organize it to best suit your argument, the sections of a systematic review reflect the stages of your protocol. Okay? So, writing about qualitative data, if your review contains a significant proportion of qualitative data or if it is entirely qualitative, you can consult the online writing lab at Purdue University. Okay. The online writing lab at Purdue University houses writing resources and instructional material, provides a free service, okay, of the writing lab at Purdue. So students, members of the communities, and users worldwide will find information to assist with many writing projects. Okay. Let's go into the website. Right. Okay, so you can click on here, okay, Purdue OWL, and then the left hand side you have several, right? It depends on what kind of writing you are planning to do, okay, the writing style, okay, and academic writing, all right? And it has some introduction for academic writing. Here. For example, establishing arguments, right? And essay writing, research and evidence, etc. They have a lot of information about writing in this website. Okay. And then writing about quantitative data. To make a systematic review transparent and easy to follow, consider how you need to write about quantitative data and present your figures and tables. Okay? Remember the results you got from the meta-analysis software, okay? The figures, forest plot figures, and tables. So formatting tables and figures in APA styles, you can also access into the Purdue OWL website. And Cochrane Handbook recommendation on presenting results and summaries of findings. Here. Right. Here is the Cochrane Handbook, okay, as one of your references. And you can go to your Cochrane review. Oh, I'm sorry, the second one. I think this is a part 2. Here, part 2. Okay, general methods for Cochrane reviews. Okay, and here, chapter chapter 11. Alright, chapter 11, presenting results and summary of findings table. Okay, it shows what kind of information you need to present for your quantitative data. Okay? For example, figures. Okay, have some figures and have some description. Okay. Alright. Okay. And critical analysis. Okay, while following the protocols and analyzing the data is important, it is equally important to present the findings in a way that reflects your critical engagement with the research question and the implication of your finding. Do you have the answer to your question? Okay, how do you communicate it? Okay, how does it fit into the broader context? Here's a video with a general recommendation on critical analysis. Let's take a look.
Critical appraisal basics, using a mind map and using a literature review matrix. It's probably good to remind ourselves that the word critical comes from the Greek word kritikos, which means discerning, not hostile. And the point of a review is not so much to bash your opponent as to give us a balanced view of what you have found and how you understood the material. There are 4 things to consider when creating a critical appraisal. First of all, you need to identify the main argument and the terms and relevance to your research question of the material that you read. Secondly, to analyze or break down the article into meaningful sections and terms with which you can work and manipulate. Then you need to evaluate both the parts of the article and the article as a whole, depending on the context. And finally, you need to formulate a synthesis of your observations. The first and the second step can be done quite easily. You're simply asking analytical questions. And here's a list of the most common ones that could be a good foundation for your breaking down of your readings. But as you put together your critical analysis of literature, it's good to decide what kind of analysis this is going to be. Are you going to closely read and analyze an article of importance? Are you going to be comparing related studies? Or are you going to be gathering a larger body of notes for a review of literature? In a standard review of literature, you'll probably do all 3 things, depending on the context and the kind of work that you're dealing with. Let us start with a close reading of an article. Most scientific articles consist of 5 parts: introduction or background, statement of aims, description of method, and then results and discussion of the result's significance. As a first step of analysis, we identify and describe these components. Much of this is done on the fly, but you can use a mind map like this one to focus on specific aspects of the article that will be important. If you're comparing 2 or 3 articles, mind maps let you focus on the parts that are parallel or comparable. You can focus just on different theoretical backgrounds or closely compare methodologies. But mind maps become clumsy when you're dealing with a number of articles. One of the tools that can help you handle much more information is literature review matrix. A matrix is simply a table that serves as a background for detailed analysis of material. Rather than focusing on the structure of the article, as in a mind map, we will now look at themes of interest for our research. First, I analyze a research question and identify themes. These will become columns in my table. My research question: does transition to university contribute to higher levels of obesity among overweight students? What I'm going to do is to break this question down into several themes I can think of right now. There will probably change as I go, but it's a good start for the table. First theme, prevalence of overweight and obesity. Second theme, changes in prevalence between high school and university. Stress, another theme. Diet and transition, another theme. Any sort of explanations of causal relationship, and perhaps weight loss as an item. And this is what it looks like when we create a matrix. First, we have bibliographical information: author, date, brief summary of aims is good. This is followed by our thematic columns: prevalence, changes, stress, diet, causality, weight loss. Finally, I add a few comments about the article as such. As you start populating your matrix with information, you will begin to see patterns in your material. For instance, you will see which articles address the role of diet and how. Eventually, you may end up changing your thematic columns to reflect a better understanding of the subject. The rest is entirely up to you. The matrix is a great analytical tool, but a great matrix does not automatically translate to great writing. Once you gather enough material on a subject, you may use a mind map once more to organize your thoughts about a theme. In this case, we have three sources discussing the role of diet. Smith shows that maintaining balanced diet reduces risk of overweight in first year. Kroger shows that first-year students experiment with diet and lifestyle, and quality of their diet generally decreases. And Wong shows that students from lower socioeconomic background have fewer problems with overeating and unbalanced diet in first year of university. And if you decide to just write this down, but it will be more like a laundry list than a literature review, what you should be asking yourself now is what exactly this information says about diet, and what is it that you want to include in your review. Perhaps you could ask you these questions. Is this enough information to make an observation? What am I going to say, or what am I wanting to say? And finally, how will I arrange this information to make my point? Once you begin to do this, you are engaging in synthesis of material, which is an essential component not just in a literature review, but in any written expression of critical analysis. So remember, first, critical means discerning, not hostile. Second, find a good way to analyze your material. And third, do not forget to write your observations as a synthesis, not just as a list. Best of luck.
Make the systematic review useful for your readers. Make sure you keep in mind the difference between summary and analysis when you write about your research findings, right? So, to summarize is to simply list the main points of a document or findings, or to describe the steps in your reviewing process. When describing literature, a summary reflects the point of review of the authors whose studies you are examining. Okay? And you should aim for simple, objective, succinct, that means concise, writing. Right? On the other hand, to analyze is to bring out the most significant of those points, okay? To identify concepts they use and how different concepts are connected. And analysis reflects your own ability to identify major points and connections and expresses your point of view. So you should aim for critical engagement with the source and understanding how it is constructed. Here's another table to compare the summary and analysis. Okay, so for the content, the summary should be brief, condensed description of a process or document. But for the analysis, should identify what points are important and how concepts are related. Right? And for the question to ask, the summary, what, who, why, when, where, how. But for the analysis, the question is more specific. Okay, what concepts are important? How are they related? Okay, what role do different variables play? And what contributions, strengths, and weaknesses are apparent? And the point of view for the summary is neutral. That means report what is there. Okay, but for analysis, you should evaluate and just like the video said, the critical analysis, right? Okay, the language, of course, both should be concise, okay, and simple, but for analysis should be clear, critical, okay, critical, it's important. Style, okay, writing style. Basically, I think each author has their own writing style, okay, but it still follows some rules, okay, still follow some rules. Okay, the following points can help you further improve your systematic review writing and clearly communicate your message to your readers. Okay. Clarity. Okay, clear writing does allow the reader to instantly recognize what is going on and who is doing the action and what the outcomes are. So the following three recommendations can help you to achieve the better clarity, right? Use verbs, actors, nominalizations. It's something about English, English writing. Right? First, use verbs. All right. Use verbs that best describes what is happening in a sentence. Okay, as you can see here, the unclear sentence. That means there has been increasing occlusion due to the activity of the beta-tyrosine in the cyanide sample. Okay, that's the unclear sentence. Okay, here the clearer sentence. Okay. Beta-tyrosine caused an increase in occlusion in the cyanide sample. Or you can write in this way. The addition of beta-tyrosine resulted in increased occlusion in the cyanide sample. Okay. These two sentences are clearer than this one. Okay. Actor. Okay. Make sure you identify the main actors in your sentences. Okay. Who is doing the action? What agents are most important? Right. Let's see the unclear sentence first. Okay. There has been an unexplained occlusion in the cyanide sample and a decision to terminate the experiment. Right? Clear sentence, the experiment was terminated due to an unexplained occlusion in the cyanide sample. Can you see the difference between these two? Mm-hmm. Although they refer to the same thing, okay, yeah. The same meaning, but they use a different way to write it. Right? And nominalization. Okay, avoid it. You should avoid nominalization. Okay, nominalizations are nouns derived from verbs or adjectives. For example, decision is a noun derived from the verb to decide, and applicability is a noun derived from the adjective applicable. Right? So sentence with an unnecessary nominalization. For example, here, a decision was made to terminate the experiment. You should revise this sentence to, we decided to terminate the experiment, or the experiment was terminated. Okay? Next, we move on to the emphasis. Okay. Emphasis refers to the part of a sentence that carries the most weight or importance. Okay. So in English, this is the most often the last part of the sentence. Okay. To make the reader pay attention to the part of the sentence you want to emphasize, you will need to structure the sentence accordingly. Okay. Here are some examples. Okay. According to climate scientists, the average ocean temperature will rise by 1.8 degrees Celsius in the next 30 years. So the emphasis here is on the duration of the temperature rise. Right? Remember what I said, that in English, emphasis is most often the last part of the sentence. So here the last part of the sentence is the next 30 years, right? So it refers to the duration of the temperature rise, right? Okay, the next one. According to climate scientists, in the next 30 years, the average ocean temperature will rise by 1.8 degrees Celsius. So here, in this sentence, the emphasis is on
the rising temperature.
Yes, the actual rise in temperature. So as you can see, where you should put your emphasis on, right? Okay, the next one. Average ocean temperature will rise by 1.8 degrees Celsius in the next 30 years, according to climate scientists. So in this sentence, the emphasis is on the authority of those who claim there will be a temperature rise, which will be climate scientists, right? The last part of the sentence. Okay? All right. Still, the emphasis, we look at the start of a sentence. Okay, the start of a sentence. Place general or already mentioned information at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, let's see here the misleading focus. Okay, a baseline in recommended dose does not overperform placebo. It should be noted. Okay, this is misleading focus. So we need to revise this sentence into, it should be noted that a baseline in recommended dose does not overperform placebo. Okay? And next point, place new information at the end of the sentence. Okay? Here, the misleading focus sentence here is intravenous delivery of abyssmine increases risk of DVT, that's deep vein thrombosis, okay, deep VT, among age population. Okay. Tissue damage and potential upper respiratory complications are further problems in this cohort. We need to revise the sentence, okay? Intravenous delivery of abyssmine increases risk of DVT among age population. Okay, this is the same sentence, right? But the next one, this cohort may face the further problems of tissue damage and potential upper respiratory complications. Right? Can you see the difference between these two? The second sentence. Right? Okay. Mm.
I think the difference like on the look at this one, the word of the should and may here reduce the certainty of the sentence.
Yes.
May means that reducing, not that much.
Of the sentence carries the most emphatic weight. Avoid padding your sentence ends with unnecessary words. Right? Example of a padded sentence. That means unnecessary word. Okay? In the blue. Okay. Our meta-analysis shows that exceeding prescribed dosage, 5 milligram per day of abyssmine has significant impact on how people carry on with normal activities in their everyday lives and in different situations in the course of the day. Okay, the sentence in the blue, the word in the blue. Okay, so your reader will struggle whether to pay attention to normal activity, everyday life, different situation, or course of the day. Okay, a lot of information in the blue words, right? So we need to revise it into this. Okay, our meta-analysis shows that exceeding prescribed dosage 5 milligram per day of abyssmine has significant impact on behavior. The end. Okay, so your reader will clearly see that impact has to do with behavior. So remember, for academic writing, we strongly recommend the author to write the sentence in short sentence, not a long sentence. Okay? Okay? Right? Dangling modifier. Okay. So a dangling modifier is a part of sentence that seems to refer a subject in a sentence without actually doing so. Okay? dangling modifiers, pay attention to the subjects and verbs, okay? And make sure they work together.
Okay.
So reading your draft out loud is also helpful.
Manipulasi.
Okay? When you have to pause or reread a sentence, go back and identify the subjects and the verb and make sure they refer to one another. Dangling modifier dangles and disrupts your writing. Okay. And you can find further dangling modifier examples and recommendations in this website. Right? I'm not going through that website because we have the examples here. Right? Some dangling modifier examples. Driving through the valley, 7 female kangaroos were seen. Okay. Who was driving through the valley? Who saw the kangaroo? Okay. The sentence implies the kangaroos could be driving. Can you see the problem? This sentence, right? Right? Okay.
Oh.
All this is about the English. Yeah. So the second sentence, being made from glass. Okay. Georgina handled the test tubes carefully. What was made from glass? The sentence implies that Georgina was made from glass.
Yeah, good way.
Yeah. Okay, the last one. After fitting the cage with an infrared light, the rats began to explore the maze. Who fit the cage with light? Okay, the sentence implies that the rats fit the cage with light and they went out to explore the maze. Okay. Okay. So we should be careful to avoid all these dangling modifier and nominalization, etc. while you write your manuscript. Okay? Right. Then remember Carrie and Lee again. Okay. So let's see during the writing stage. Okay. Carrie and Lee carefully check the guidelines of the journal where they intend to submit their review. Okay. It clearly identifies specific sections they must include, as well as the word limits. Right? Sometimes the journals have some requirements for authors, and especially for the word limits. You need to notice that. Okay, reference style, right? Referencing format. Remember when we input the reference into EndNote, we can choose what kind of output style we want, right? So you need to go to the journal that you want to submit your manuscript and to see if they have any requirement for the reference style, right? They have so many kinds of reference style. Okay. And they also carefully review the journal scope to make sure their systematic review article will fit in, and consider how specialized the readership is likely to be. And because their study, Carrie and Lee's study, is of interest in many areas, they have chosen a general healthcare journal with clear open access policies. At this stage, Carrie and Lee also meet again with their specialist librarian colleague, okay, to ensure they have not selected a predatory publisher. Now, this is very important. Also for you all, okay, to be carefully, do not submit your manuscript to the predatory journal, okay? And to see if there are any other good publishing options they have overlooked. So now that they are happy with their journal selection, Carrie and Lee make note of the journal's rules, set up a shared document with the required headings, and identify who will write each section. And let's decide on a date by which to prepare their first draft and agree that at this stage they just want to ensure they have the main ideas in the right places. And they won't worry too much about formatting or wording at this stage. Okay. So Carrie remembers to include a citation to the protocol she registered with Prospero, right at the start of the review process. Remember, so if you want to submit your manuscript, before that you need to register your systematic review in Prospero and get the registration number. So during your submission, you should put the registration number in your manuscript, right? Right, so once the first draft is completed, Carrie and Lee wait a few days, then read over it individually. So they each print off a separate version and add their own comments and edits, then meet to discuss their notes. They realize that some of the text is out of order and repetitive, while some other points are missing. So they know this is normal when starting on a big piece of writing, so they are happy to reorganize the information as necessary. That's one reason why they haven't focused too much on wording or referencing at this point. Okay? At this stage, the content is more important than, the grammar, etc. Right. They are now ready to start refining the wording, adding extra detail, and thinking about the word count requirements. Okay. And Carrie and Lee both know that however good they are at writing, there will inevitably be mistakes. Okay. So they are also aware that they have been engrossed in the topic for some time and might be making incorrect assumptions about what is common knowledge or clearly explained. They recruit a few trusted colleagues to provide feedback on their work. And one colleague helpfully suggests a useful diagram that clarifies some information while also reducing the word count. Okay. Now that they are happy everything is ready, they ensure all the references are included and correctly formatted, run one final spelling check, and submit their review to the journal. Yay! Alright?